Sean.
Marco.
We are here to deliver a message from the RSA conference team.
It's an important message from our friends. RSA Conference 2025, just around the corner, where insights drive action, solutions emerge, and community connections spark innovation. You'll be there. I'll be there. We invite everybody else to be there April 28th through May 1st. You can secure your spot at rsaconference.com/ITSPMAG25. That's ITSPMAG25. See you all there.
I'll be there. See you there.
And hello, everybody. You're very welcome to a new Music Evolves podcast. I'm your host, Sean Martin, where I get to do what I love, which is talk about music. I like to create music as well, but I equally like to talk about music and how it's evolved and where it's headed and why it matters to us as humans. And I think we need more musicians. There's not enough music, not enough music in the world. And I don't know, I think everybody listens to music, but if you can actually perform music, the feeling that comes from that is something extra special from my perspective. And I'm thrilled to have my guest on today, Aaron Friedman. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Good to have you on. We're going to talk today about a festival or a set of festivals and ultimately about bringing people together to make music, and that's for Make Music Day. So we're going to get into what that is and where it is and all the goodness that it is. Before we do that, though, maybe a few words about who you are, what some of the things you do in music are, and how it connects to Make Music Day, which we'll spend some time on.
Yeah, of course. Well, for the last almost 20 years, I've been working on Make Music Day in some form or another. But initially, I was a jazz saxophone player and then a graduate student in composition. And I guess at a certain point in my music career, I realized that amateur musicians, like my two nieces who were taking piano lessons at age 8 and 10 when I was in graduate school, they seemed to be having a lot more fun than I was. And something about the process of music discovery, especially for people who, don't see it as a grind or as a career, but it's just something that they can bring into their lives and sort of enrich their creativity and their ability to communicate with others. I've always thought that was really one of the amazing things music does. And over the years, I had political jobs and arts administrative jobs and bartending jobs, and somehow it all came together for me in this project, Make Music Day, which it's been going really well.
So I'm super interested in all the jazz stuff. Were you able to play out at all, or with a group, or what did you do?
Yeah, well, I went to high school in Berkeley, California, and Berkeley High School was famous for graduating musicians like Joshua Redman, who was a few years ahead of me, Charlie Hunter, Peter Applebaum, Benny Green. A lot of people that, were just kind of incredible jazz figures. And I was playing all the time and loved improvisation and loved the feeling that I could just sit down with strangers and somehow we could have a conversation musically. At the same time, I realized that I was never going to be at the Joshua Redman level. So when I went to college, I was still playing jazz a lot, and I played in a funk band in Philadelphia and did different gigs. But I really started to explore composition and realized, I think for the first time, just how broad music could be. I think when you grow up in a particular musical community, you think about music in terms of like, well, what can I do that other people understand? What's the vocabulary? What's the kind of accepted moves that I could make in this genre? And then at a certain point, you realize music is kind of a language with acceptable moves, but it's kind of something else. It's kind of this huge open expanse that you can explore. And if you do something that's never been done, but it sounds cool to you, it probably sounds cool to someone else too. So I really started to broaden my perspective, and it's only later in life that I've actually gone back to jazz a lot in my own personal listening and playing because it's still very very close to my heart.
It's in you. It's in you.
Yeah,
And I know we didn't actually talking about this, but if you're cool with it, I think the idea that music and as a language and a way to communicate with each other um, is a super important point. And I think because you talked about composition, and so jazz is total improv, right? Or obviously
yeah, oh yeah,
there's music and repeatable. You can create songs that feel improvisational, but and then there's composition. So I'm wondering how do you how do you view those two things? Where one is just I'm playing what I'm feeling, and then the other is I'm composing what I'm feeling so that I can then play it again and again in a certain way. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that connection or those differences there?
yeah. Well, even if you're performing, a composition that was written weeks or years or centuries before, and it seems to be very set in stone, there's still something that happens in a live performance that's different every single time. It could even be the size of the room and the acoustics that determine how you're going to phrase certain things, or it could be what kind of audience you have in front of you, and do you need to hear it a little bit slower, or are they paying a little more attention or less attention? I think improvisation, you're always attuned to the situation at hand, who you're playing with, exactly what reactions you're getting from the other players, and then how you change what you're playing. So I think it's in a way it's a difference of degree. I think even something that's already been composed in the moment, you still have to improvise in a way. You still have to react and be present. Um, but what I found about improvisation, as someone doing it a lot, it was that it's very easy to freeze up on stage and get nervous and fall back on pre-existing material that you just know that you have it in your fingers and that you can do it if you have to. And there's something about having the notes composed on the page ahead of time where you're playing something that was written maybe with a little less pressure, a little more leisure to kind of work it out. And so I think there's definitely great aspects of each one, but at a certain point I felt like, okay, I don't want to be hemmed in by what's in my fingers. I want to have my mind sort of go past my own technique in a way. I think if you see, the best jazz musicians, they can just do everything at any time they want, and it's not a problem. So, I'm really speaking more about
Or at
my
least
own.
it feels like they meant to do that.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's another thing about jazz is that it's flexible enough that there are no wrong notes if you can lead it in the right place. You can always um, incorporate any note into any chord if you know how to do it. So that's also something that a good improviser will be able to manage.
That's interesting because I'm proficient at percussion and drums, and clearly there's music that's been composed and performed, and I find that I'm constantly improvising if I'm playing along with something, right? I'm filling in beats and things that weren't in the original, but I feel that as I'm playing along. And I don't know if those were composed with the idea that improvisation could play along with it or be part of it. I also I write music, not notes. I just play
Mhm.
and something comes to mind, but I don't think of it as I'm doing it as I'm going to create this such that it is open for interpretation and improvisation. I just write it for the moment. So I don't know, when you're composing, do you what's your process like there? Is it this is what I'm feeling, this is what I want to portray, or do you think it has to be composed in a way that's open and allows for freedom of people to hear it in certain ways?
Well, sometimes you read about you know novelists who are sitting in front of a blank page for weeks at a time, and it feels like there's not always a recipe. Sometimes you have a great idea for a piece and you just go for it and you follow it to the end. And other times you have a great idea and then 7 bars in, you just have no idea what could possibly follow the first part. And maybe that goes in a drawer for a while, or maybe you come up with something. Um, but I mean, what you're saying about drumming reminds me of, I mean, actors. I think a really big part of the process is getting off the page. A playwright wrote the words, they have to learn the words, but then they have to put that aside and they have to just act, and I think that's maybe another analogy to what musicians have to do. And yeah, I mean, and sometimes you ad lib. I mean, that's part of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that little side journey. We could probably talk for hours on that, but I want to get to clearly both of us have been fortunate enough to have music in school, and not everybody has that opportunity. Either it's not available or they choose other extracurricular things to pursue. Um, is that a reason, or what is the reason behind Make Music Day? My sense is that it's to give people a chance to get involved in something that either they were and no longer, or haven't been able to. What's the vision, or the
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, maybe just to start, I could tell you a little bit about the origins of this day. In 1981, a new government took office in France, and it was the first, um, kind of left-wing socialist government in a while, and there were a number of things they were looking at changing, and they realized that for centuries in France there had been support for the opera, the symphonies, the ballet, Comédie Française, and yet if you actually look at what French people are doing, they're playing guitars, they're playing all sorts of music and doing all sorts of different kinds of culture, which just never really recognized before in any kind of official way. So the Minister of Culture in 1982 gave a speech and then went on different, news programs on June 1st. And he said, you know what, maybe 3 weeks from now, if you play an instrument, you can come outside and play for 30 minutes after the evening news at 8:30. And we'll call it Fête de la Musique, which in French is a pun that means festival of music, but it also means make music. And that was it. I mean, they just kind of made this a suggestion, and because it came from the government, I think people felt like they're not going to get arrested if they go out and play on the street. And 3 weeks from that day, hundreds of thousands of people came out onto the streets, not for half an hour, but for like 10 or 12 hours at a time, shutting down traffic. I mean, taking over train stations. It was like there was this huge group of people who had been kind of hidden away as like secretly being musicians or music lovers, and all they needed was someone to, give them the excuse to come out.
Is it documented?
Yeah.
We could see, I presume, articles, perhaps even, I don't know if there's videos.
Oh, of course. Well, when I first went to France to kind of investigate this whole project, I went to the National Archives and looked up all the press from the first year and saw a lot of videos. And people were just shocked that this was happening, honestly. And then the next year it happened again. I mean, people just knew, oh, June 21st, that's when we did it last year. Let's take it out on the street again. And every year it became this bigger and bigger spontaneous demonstration. The French government had a survey about 10 years ago, a phone survey of 1,200 people, and they asked, did you participate in the Fête de la Musique? Did you hear music? Did you play music? And about 7% of the people said they'd actually sung or played an instrument in public, and 64% had gone out and wandered around to hear what music might be taking place in their neighborhood. So it really got to this point of like a Halloween level of participation where everyone just knows this is the day you can do it. It's not an organized festival. it's just a holiday when people can play music. Um, and I started getting involved, I guess, when I was teaching English in Bordeaux in the south of France for a year, and had all of these students who were talking about how, they had to get their bands together and learn a few songs because on June 21st they would be able to go out and play. And I didn't know what they were talking about, but yeah, like I realized this is an event that it's not officially in the schools, it's not officially about music education, but it has this huge impact on people who, are curious about music and maybe they aspire to be one of those people up on stage someday. And it's an event where everything is happening outside. The public is wandering around. There are no tickets, there are no reservations. So anyone can show up and start playing. And if you only know two songs, you could play those two songs over and over again, and people will stop and hear them, and then, they'll wander off to the next thing down the block. So you don't have to feel like there's a kind of barrier to entry of knowing how to navigate the business, knowing enough songs to have a concert-length set. None of that really matters. You can just show up and start playing.
Well, it sounds very much, there's Trad Fest and Tune Fest. One is more commercial than the other. Tune Fest is a little more country style of what you're describing in Ireland. And basically anybody and everybody comes and they sit in a pub. They may not have met each other before, and they play traditional Irish music, and it's over a weekend, but very much a similar style of thing where people just come out. They're not performers, right? They're not professional musicians. They just love to play. This is a chance for them to come together and meet and do that. As you're describing the festival in France, there's a really good friend of mine who he himself and every one of his daughters are amazing musicians, and they just play all the time. And I can see the love for music in the French culture. And I was wondering, do you find that pretty much, I don't know, a lot of people, I guess, are not hidden, but they do it for themselves, and this gives them a chance to actually be part of something bigger?
Yeah, well, the first year I got this started in the United States was in 2007. So I started the event and called it Make Music New York. So it's like Make Music in the French translation. And the first year I had, my own personal connections to, jazz and classical musicians. And then I had some interns from NYU and Columbia who were helping me out and doing outreach. But I was totally surprised at who came out of the woodwork that first year and joined in. We had 560 events the first year, all on June 21st. And some of them were put together by Carnegie Hall or Joe's Pub or sort of established presenters. But so many of them were punk bands who didn't have a place to play and thought that showing up on the street with a bunch of amps is just absolutely what they would love to do. Then there were two different Beijing opera companies. I wasn't familiar with the genre at all, but they were performing in Chinatown and also in Central Park. There was a huge group of high school-aged Spanish-language Christian rock bands in Sunset Park in Brooklyn, which was not a neighborhood I'd even been to. But, again, like they just sort of felt like, well, they have their tiny scene and they have their friends and family who go to see them. But look, they want everybody to hear their music. They want to get out there and even if no one else seems to be, clamoring for their particular songs, I mean, if they went out and they had an incredible time and they came back year after year after that. So, yeah, I think a lot of it, there are these people who are just very, very, passionate about the music that they make and realize that it's not going to be for everybody. And this is a day where everybody can sort of, come together on a common footing and feel like, yeah, we're all going to share the bill, even though we're all totally different.
It's an incredible thing. So it's June 21st every year. So it started in New York. How long did you do it there? And then what happened? Because it's a national thing now, right?
Yeah.
To France as well, maybe broader than that even.
No, for sure. So, so I was running the event in New York for 5 or 6 years and getting, reviews in the New York Times and sometimes in the New Yorker and in different places regularly. And people would call from other parts of the country and say, oh, we read about this in the Times. So what you're doing in New York, that's great. Could we do Make Music Chicago or Make Music Miami? And I said, well, I think that's great, but I've got my hands full. I'm one person trying to run, an event for 8 million people in New York. I don't think I'm going to come out to Chicago and help you out. I mean, you're on your own. And then eventually we got in touch with the NAMM Foundation in California, which represents musical instrument companies and retailers. And we started talking about how Make Music Day in France is such a big event that it's really a huge shot in the arm for all of the music stores, because people know they've got to start taking lessons. They have to rent a PA system for their event. They have to get their guitar restrung, all the stuff that you need to do. It's kind of like on Valentine's Day, if you run a florist, you don't have to advertise. People just start coming in and buying your flowers. It's the best day of the year. So, I think NAMM really understood the vision for it and helped us start a national organization, the Make Music Alliance. So we really could go out to other parts of the country and explain the idea, get people set up with the kind of websites and national partnerships and back office infrastructure that we had already been developing for New York, and just, help to spread it nationwide. So they got involved in 2014, and about 10 years later, it's over 150 cities now doing Make Music Day. And we've also been able to start Make Music China, Make Music Australia, Make Music Nigeria, South Africa, Ghana, Turkey, Mexico, Brazil, UK, all these places where, a lot of people had heard about the event in France, but there's no one organizing it in France. There's no one to really, tell them what to do. And we were able to sort of step into that role and say, look, we can tell you all about how it's working in the US and what's been easy, what's been challenging, and help you get it off the ground. Not to say that I'm an expert at event production in Nigeria or China or anything like that. I mean, we need very strong local partners to make any of this work.
Well, when I'm not doing music, I'm a tech guy, and I like to look at problems in certain ways, and operations are a big thing for me. Can you describe kind of what you do to organize it? You mentioned you have the backing and support of NAMM, but who else is involved? Kind of how does it all come together? Perhaps what do you need from folks as well?
Well, I think one of the keys is that, it's very hard to recreate the French technique of getting the Minister of Culture, which doesn't even exist here, to go on all 2 television stations, and spread the word. What we've created is kind of a internet dating website tool, a matchmaking tool that we set up for every community that wants to start their own Make Music Day chapter. And it's just like an internet dating site. You log on, you create a profile. You can either be a venue or a performer or both or some combination. And once you sign up, you can see everybody else who's already signed up. And, maybe you've, put in some information about your band and your website and your photo and description and what technical equipment you need. And you can start to see, okay, here are the venues that are looking for, a bluegrass band like mine. Here are the ones that are open in the afternoon. And the venues are like someone's front porch or a coffee shop or a laundromat or an alley or steps of City Hall or a train station, any kind of location. And some of them just have an extension cord that they run out the window to the street to let someone plug in. And some of them are, more robust than that. But basically people can kind of make their own arrangements. And once both sides have agreed on a time and whatever, arrangements they make between themselves, then that event goes into a local administrator's inbox. They can look it over, they can ask any questions, but mostly, they can just click to publish it on a Google map for their community. So it's a way to create concert listings without anybody having to do data entry. It's a way to organize things without actually doing the sort of auditioning and curation of a traditional festival. And it's a way for people to see, like, oh yeah, anybody can sign up, anybody can make arrangements. You just have to figure out what you want to do. Um,
Can I ask you this quickly? This matchmaking, who are the parties involved? Because you mentioned the venue, the performers as well. Um, does it help connect performers and venues with people running mixers and PAs? And I don't know if they want to get elaborate and do lighting and all, right? But is that part of it? Because there's a lot that goes into performing. Certainly,
yeah,
you can just play a violin or a saxophone on your porch, and that's participating. But if
yeah,
you wanted
yeah,
to do something bigger, it can get pretty complicated or complex, I guess.
for sure. I think, I mean, the big point is that we want everybody to be doing this, and the teams that are coordinating Make Music Day in each city are pretty small for the most part. So it's kind of like for Halloween. If you want to have a big haunted house and get actors and makeup artists and everybody involved, I mean, that's great, but you kind of have to figure it out on your own.
Okay.
It's similarly, like, if you want to have a big produced show, often the local Make Music chapter has an arrangement with the city government to suspend all sound permits for the day, or to sort of create one consolidated permit where everybody who signs up on the matchmaking website gets their information automatically added to a city database. This can get into the weeds a little bit, but a big part of the system is a way to kind of create a structure, but not still allow a sort of feeling of freedom and spontaneity. Um, so yeah, a big problem actually is the traffic control. So in France, you have people coming out, and there's maybe a street with 7 different bars, and on June 21st, everyone wants to have a band come out and play, and they're all playing at the same time, and it's just really challenging for everyone involved. So one way that our event, I think, is a little better than the one in France is that there's a degree of coordination, and when people sign up, the local administrator can say, like, you know what, that's actually the same time that we have a heavy metal band playing next door, so maybe you could do it a little earlier, or maybe just work something out with them. That can help a lot.
Got it. Um, how have you been? Have you been to the French one?
Yeah, so I was in Paris in 2006, and I started walking around, and I was looking for the stages, and I was looking for the signs, and I was like, nothing's happening. Am I here at the right day? I don't get it. And then about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, people were getting off of work, off of school. They just started coming out on the street with instruments, and people were opening their windows and playing music, with clarinet coming out the window, and there were, kids taking over the streets with their, year-end recitals that they were doing, and it just went on and on and on. It went till like 3 in the morning, and I realized, yeah, I mean, Halloween, there's no official signs, whatever. People just are going to do their own thing. That's kind of how it works. So it was really eye-opening for me to see it.
So more organized here in the States. Clearly a website. I don't know if there's an app or not, but so bringing people together, people in venues together, but then also can people view that to see what's going on where and find the things that might interest them as
Exactly. Yeah. So there's so last year that we had 5,304 events in the U.S. on our website for Make Music Day, and you could go to each city or county or whoever was doing the chapter and drill down in each one and see all the different events and who was playing where. Yeah, I think a lot of the experience is really about wandering around at random, honestly, and just discovering parts of the musical world that you didn't even know about.
Now, are they? Forgive my ignorance here, but so I can picture a lot of places that have either specific music venues or they have a section in their establishment dedicated to music, or maybe they don't. But the idea is that they, on Make Music Day, they bring performers together and make music. Are they inside, or because what you're describing in France is a little more free form in terms of what I'm thinking about anyway. And it's just everyday people coming out onto the street. So I'm wondering in New York and perhaps around the rest of the US, is there a lot outside? I mean, June should be a beautiful day.
Yeah, no, it's almost all outside. Yeah,
Okay.
even
So you
the
don't have to go in a
venues.
venue necessarily
That's
to
right, right, right.
experience.
Yeah, and even I mean, I think part of it is if you're playing some kind of obscure music or you're an amateur that no one's heard of, you want to be outside. You want people to be able to just follow their ears and find you instead of if you have to go into a venue, you sort of have to know already what's going on and where to go. So that's the issue.
The wandering and stumbling across something. That's it's
Yeah.
the human physical way of music discovery. not
Exactly.
not being
Yeah.
fed by AI what it thinks you
Well,
want to hear next.
it's really funny. So the event began in 1982, and I think the Walkman had just been invented like 1 or 2 years before that. I think, the whole way that people were experiencing music was a little bit different, and today I feel like so many people are listening to their own algorithmically determined music in their own headphones in their own house by their computer. That having that sort of community discovery is really different from what a lot of people are used to. So in a way, I don't know if our event is a very technologically driven event, but in a way, it's like because the rest of the world is technologically driven, we've carved out this, I think, even more important place for people to see music in a totally different way, something that is handmade and made by themselves.
Yeah, there's something really special about that. And I mean, I've said it on the show a few times now, but I use technology to find the random things that I wouldn't uncover in terms of music, be it a song, it might just be a song that somebody included as part of their Instagram post, or it might be an Instagram post that is celebrating a musician or a performer. It might be there's a concert going on, and I'll go to a concert for a particular genre, and it might be sandwiched between two other performers, and I'll hear those that I'd never heard before. So it's great to do that, and using technology, but also just to be able to walk around and
Yeah.
participate and to hear. And what I love about the music communities, they're very open to, many of them anyway, very open to conversations. Like
Yeah.
why do they like that style of music? Why do they like performing? What do they do when they're not performing in terms of music and whatnot? And some of those conversations are equally fulfilling.
Yeah. Well,
as a human.
so at a certain point, we realized, we have Make Music Day chapters around the world. I think during the pandemic, we were really trying to figure out what we could do, and when that kind of live experience wasn't feasible necessarily, and we started a project called My Song Is Your Song, where Make Music Day participants from all different countries will submit an original song of theirs. And then we sort of have a Secret Santa situation where we'll pair people up, they'll learn each other's songs, and then on June 21st, they'll come out and perform a cover version of the other person's music. So this has been a huge success in Nigeria. For some reason, there have been hundreds of Nigerian songwriters joining each year and getting paired up with songwriters in Australia and the US and Turkey and the UK and all different places. And you realize, first of all, there's sometimes a language barrier. Sometimes, you know that you're mispronouncing every single word of the person's song. But, at the same time, you find a connection, and you find that, like, someone in another part of the world is speaking to you in a certain way. And by learning their song and hearing your own song, you kind of feel this connection. And through that project, we've actually had people start songwriting teams between each other and release singles and really, have these kind of, strange bedfellows connections between them. So, yeah.
That's phenomenal. What are there any other examples of creative ways people are coming together and
Oh yeah,
expressing themselves that you want to share?
yeah, of course. Well, another project that's been really fun is called Sousapalooza. And this started with Make Music Chicago, but it's happening in dozens of cities now on Make Music Day. There's just a lot of people out there who used to play in a marching band or some kind of school band, and maybe they still have a trombone in their closet, even if they've moved on to a career in marketing or some other thing. And pretty much all those people have played John Philip Sousa marches at some point in their life. So we have local band directors getting together and saying, okay, on Make Music Day, I'm going to be in this plaza. I'm going to set up these chairs and music stands. We're all going to sight read John Philip Sousa marches together. And some of them get hundreds of people coming out, military band members, professional orchestral musicians, high school kids, people from the fire department. I mean, all sorts of people coming out. And first of all, it sounds pretty good. I mean, that was my first question. No rehearsal. All these people are coming out. What's it actually going to sound like? And the answer is John Philip Sousa is not that hard. Most people have played it at some point. But the second thing is there are all of these relationships building between professional musicians and amateurs who just lionize these people. Like, first chair player in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra is not someone who you'd recognize on the street. But at a Sousapalooza event, I mean, they are just like a huge celebrity. So I think people really get a lot out of it from both directions and feel a sort of sense of mentorship and carrying on this brass music tradition. So Sousapalooza has been great.
I love the name too.
Yeah. But we have, every year there's different projects, and one that's really come out of that NAMM connection is called Mass Appeal, where we have companies like Hohner donating thousands of free harmonicas, Vic Firth donating thousands of drumsticks, rhythm band instruments for hand percussion, sometimes ukulele companies, and we're able to put these in the hands of music teachers all around the country. And tell people on Make Music Day, there's no excuse. I mean, if you don't even have an instrument, come join us, pick up a pair of sticks, join a bucket drumming event. You can keep the sticks or take a harmonica lesson, keep the harp for your own future musical discovery. So I think those projects have really inspired a lot of people to kind of break off of the non-musical path and see what they can do with a little music in their life.
A little music. So you have, I'm not going to list the partners per se, but there are quite a few folks. You mentioned a few that seem to help out with some of these projects. So kudos to them for doing that. There's also the Alliance, which I believe is beyond just supporting partners, right? So can you describe the Alliance and who that's for and
yeah, of course.
Involved, yeah.
Yeah. So the Make Music Alliance is the group that oversees Make Music Day throughout the country and in a number of other countries. And we're really there as a resource and a promotional tool for all of the local chapters. So we, work with the music union and the Music Teachers National Association, the NAMM Foundation, all these sort of national organizations, as well as the instrument companies and media partners. But a lot of what we do is really just finding people in new places that love this idea and work with them over a couple of year period to make it a reality. So sometimes it's a local city government or a business improvement district or a music school or someone who says, this would really be great in our community. How do we do it? And we say, well, that's what we're here for. We'll consult with you. We'll give you, all of the language of, press releases and e-blasts that other cities have used. Just don't reinvent the wheel. Just steal from these examples and find a local way to make it work. So. It's such a fun job because every community
and you're not by yourself anymore.
Yeah,
People
I know. I have
helping
a whole
you.
team. I know it's amazing, and Yeah, I mean, and every city like New York has just these really complicated permitting laws, and it took me years to master the intricacies of what you could do or couldn't do in public spaces, and what the street activity permit office and the Department of Transportation and the police department, the parks department all have to agree on. A lot of the country, no one cares. I mean, you just show up and play music. It's fine. I mean, nothing's going to happen. So, it's really so much more freeing for me sometimes to work with people in other places where I think, yeah, let's just put a bunch of trumpet players on top of some farm equipment and just drive through town, and it'll be great.
The Honer hayride.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think when we were talking, I don't know how long ago, it was a couple weeks or whatever, preparing for this, I was trying to figure out if I'm going to be in New York or not on the 21st. I can't even remember if I am or not. But anyway, I was like, I hope I'm there for this. But I realize wherever I am, perhaps I could still participate. I don't know that I'll break out my trumpet. My lips aren't quite ready for that.
Oh, well, that's what they all say.
Maybe the drums. I'll get in and have some fun. Well, Aaron, I mean, a phenomenal thing you're doing here, and it's great to see it grow and have the support of so many in the community, from the sponsors and the participants and your fellow Alliance members. I'm really, this is my call to everybody listening, watching. Mark the 21st of June on your calendar. Take your instrument, join a group in your neighborhood. If you don't see one in your neighborhood, perhaps take some of the passion you have for music and consider trying to make one happen in your neighborhood, or travel to another one.
Anyone who goes to makemusicday.org will see the list of participating cities, and hey, if you're not on that list and you want to be, just send us a line.
Perfect. Well, Aaron, it's been a pleasure meeting you, chatting with you, and I hope to see you on the 21st in New York. But if I don't, know that I'll be participating somehow, some way on that day. And everybody listening, please go to makemusicday.org. It's all one word, makemusicday.org. Obviously, the dot is the period there. Find out what's going on, participate, join, keep making music, keep loving music, and let the music move you. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode.
Sean.
Marco.
We are here to deliver a message from the RSA conference team.
It's an important message from our friends. RSA Conference 2025, just around the corner, where insights drive action, solutions emerge, and community connections spark innovation. You'll be there. I'll be there. We invite everybody else to be there April 28th through May 1st. You can secure your spot at rsaconference.com/ITSPMAG25. That's ITSPMAG25. See you all there.
I'll be there. See you there.